you go to this special school. If you know anything about art, you go over here to Kappa. If you can dance, you go to Kappa. If you know anything special, they send you to a special school so that there's a brain drain in the regular schools. There is no avenue for people to do specialty things. Does that make sense? You heard?
Mm-hmm. Can we pause for a second?
Mm-hmm. People flying home for dinner.
Okay, okay. What provoked the beginning of the school district crisis?
Me, with my point of view, is that it was greed. It was greed and mismanagement. They started cutting school budgets back during Hornbeck and Constance Clayton's time. So that was back in the 70s. They started cutting. But most people didn't know that there were folk who were making quite a bit of money. It's, like right now we have a $3 billion budget. There's a capital side that's got another $1 billion in it. And they do a lot of repairs to the building. There are companies that make money putting roofs on, putting air conditioners in, doing the floors and stuff. And those contracts are handled on the third floor of the school district building. And so millions and millions of dollars go through that office. And many of those are greased hands. They are paid to get contracts. They make sure you go to a certain restaurant. There was a politician that owned a restaurant called the Spaghetti House. All the school district functions were going through this restaurant. Although the food wasn't all that good, he got a cut out of everything that went through. There are certain construction companies that get a cut out of every window that goes into the school district. Recently, the superintendent was attacked. I believe Dr. Ackerman was attacked because she sent $7 million contract to another vendor who wasn't on their list of buddies. And they attacked her and got her out, drove her out of town. They raised money on the side to get her out of town because she didn't stay within her lane. And her lane was to make nice about educating children, not to mess with the money they're making. There are large conglomerates of people who make a whole lot of money and use our children as fodder to keep that money flowing. So I believe that the crisis was initiated by folk who were sucking money out of the system and putting it aside for their own self-interest. Vallis was hired to balance the budget. He was a financial person from Chicago. He was supposed to balance the budget. They gave him a $100,000 bonus to balance the budget. After they gave him a $100,000 bonus, I'm sitting in a SRC meeting, School Reform Commission meeting, and they said, there might be a $10 million discrepancy. At the end of the meeting, it was up to $43 million. Now, the books have been closed, so how are we finding a $43 million discrepancy? After that, it became $78 million, and then it grew to a $182 million discrepancy, or shortfall. And he was hired to balance the budget. So he had a shortfall of $182 million. Then he was removed. He didn't get removed. He went to New Orleans and applied for a job, got paid $40,000 to analyze New Orleans after Katrina, to analyze what they needed for a school district, recommended himself, and then he took that job and left here with a big paycheck. And then they hired Ackerman. And Ackerman came in, and she had to have a big paycheck because he had set up a big paycheck. And Dr. Ackerman, she was removed because she gave out a contract to a small minority firm And they said, that's not what you're supposed to do. And they turned on her like, just like that. So the crisis has been people with their hands in the cookie jar, I believe. I think there's sufficient money. There was sufficient money coming in to educate children at a better stage than they are now. I might be a little cynical, huh?
What impact do you think the budget cuts will have on future education of students?
I think it's going to have a devastating effect. I don't think that people really understood it, understand how bad it is. I had personal conversations with Knudsen, who is supposed to be the person who is reorganizing the school district, with Penny Nixon, who is the chief academic officer. I've looked at this plan that was developed through the Boston group that they came up with, and they're talking about closing 70 schools. They initially said they were going to be $118 million short. It's up to over $300 million and growing. They already had lost almost $1 billion from last year. So they're going to, I know people who, principals who are giving out EpiPens because they don't have nurses in their schools. EpiPens are, for children who have asthma and diabetes. And they're handing out 40 doses of medications a day. Principals who are not trained in that at all. I know nurses who were going to one school who are now going to 3 different schools. Nurses have been split up to handle 1,500 students apiece. These things are not going to help at all. The counselors have been cut in half. The school police have been cut. The NTAs don't exist no more. So they're setting up turmoil, and they haven't finished making up the $300 million cut. So they're going to have to cut more. Class size is going to go from, I think, the legal 33 up to 35, 37 per class. And when they shut the schools down, in my view, what they did before, they shut schools down with no thought to who they're going to blend, how the students would blend together. So they shut down Pickett Middle School, Gillespie Middle School, and they shut down Ada Lewis Middle School and put them all in Roosevelt, and wondered why they had gang wars and fights, because they were coming from several neighborhoods and they didn't get along in the first place. And then you cut the staff. I think we're setting up for a devastating, and already the school district, the 3rd graders are 2 grades below reading level. How do you get below reading level in 3rd grade? And if they're below level in 3rd grade and 50% of the students are dropping out now, and then you cut it by another $300 million, I don't see it getting much better.